Alison.
Hi.
It's so nice to be talking with you today.
It's so nice to talk to you. Thank you for watching the film.
Of course, yes. So we're here talking about Resynator. It's a documentary about, this journey that you go on to learn more about your dad, who passed away when you were really young. And I thought this movie was just so fascinating to watch. So we're gonna talk about it. And based on the subject matter, I take it you like music.
I do.
You mentioned in the documentary at the very beginning that you tour for a living, and so I kind of want to start there. Let's talk about your history with music and your career.
Yeah, I've always worked in music. I've had many different jobs. I went to I was an intern at my concert venue back home in Ohio, or I was in Kentucky really, but I tried to manage bands in college and started touring with Grace. Before that, I was working for a music supervisor in LA. That's what brought me out to LA 15 years ago. So always just anything I could do that involved music, but I'm not a musician.
Right.
So I was Grace's, when I started touring with Grace, I was her assistant and her tour manager sometimes. And then in 2018, I got off the road because I needed to finish the film. I started making this film while I was on tour, and then it became very apparent that it was going to take way longer than I thought to finish, and I needed to be in LA to finish it. So I stopped touring with her. I worked for some other artists and did studio stuff, but started working for the Tom Petty family, and so now I'm the Tom Petty estate archivist. I've been doing that for the past 6 years. I just had my 6-year anniversary.
Very cool.
Which is a whole other type of job that I just absolutely love. It's the coolest gig.
It's really cool. I mean, as I was watching the documentary, I just wanted to get a little more background on where you come from with music and just a little more context on why this is so important to you. Am I correct that there was a Kickstarter campaign for this to get this project completed?
Oh yeah, there was.
You want to talk a little bit about that process of getting it funded and Kickstarter and
well, I'm still trying to get it funded. I'm so sick of using my own money. Because this was my first film.
Right.
I started it 10 years ago. I didn't have a background in filmmaking, so being a no-name first-time filmmaker, it was hard. I applied for a bunch of grants that I didn't get, and so I got a fiscal sponsor. I worked with both IFC, now Gotham, and then IDA. And I would get donations from friends and family and stuff, and then I just decided to do the real big thing and do a Kickstarter, and I did that in 2019. And it was a lot of work. It was hard. That was one of the hardest parts about making it, because it's so hard to ask for things in general, but also this is a story, it's my family, it's my, it's all about me and my life, and just to ask people for money was so hard. But it also introduced, my community came out, and everybody, everyone I've ever met contributed to this film, which is awesome. But then there was a whole new group of people introduced to the film that have been paying attention and supporting it since then too. And so yeah, it was really hard. I'm glad that I did it. I don't know if I'll ever do anything like that again, but yeah, it was, fundraising is a beast.
It's tough. It's one of the toughest parts. I used to ask the question, what was the most challenging thing about making the film? And the answer was always funding. So
yeah.
That was, I found other ways to ask that question, but I get it. And I applaud you for going through the steps to make it happen.
Thanks.
But also, what a success story. I mean, 10 years in the making, you did what you had to get it off the ground and to get it going, premiered at South by Southwest and won an Audience Award.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Tell me about the South by Southwest experience and how it was having your film there and all the accolades that you've gotten for it.
It was so important for me for so many different reasons, mostly because it was the first time, because I'd worked on it for 10 years, and I finally got to show people what I had been doing. I'd been talking about it for so long, so to finally show people and have people respond positively to it was awesome. But it was also the first time in my whole life that I've actually put art out into the world. Because I always worked for the artist. I was never the artist myself. So that was just a weird feeling. And it's not just any art, it's my whole life. Every nook and cranny of my private life is there. So it was a slew of emotions, and but it was so wonderful. Like, it was just such a good experience. My mom was there, and my sister was there, and my husband was there, and basically my whole team was there, and 15, 20 friends had driven in, flown in. So it was just, I knew that, I didn't know if it was going to be this packed house, but I knew that there were going to at least be like 30 people who love and support me. And then it was a packed house, and I was so excited. And the moderator even called out at the end. We did a Q&A, and she was like, "Can we talk about how brave your mom is?" And it was just like so fun, because I was like, she's here, and I got to tell everybody that, how much I love her and how brave I think she is and stuff. So that was maybe my favorite moment of the whole thing. But yeah, it was just been a very surreal and exciting release.
Absolutely.
It feels like a release.
No, that's really cool. And I'm happy to hear that you had that opportunity and that the film has been embraced the way that it has. You've mentioned a couple things, like when it comes to bravery. And I mean, this is such and how private the story is. There's a lot of parts of you that you're just kind of putting out there in this work. Something that I was thinking about when watching the film is how brave you are for pursuing the story and asking questions that maybe don't have desirable answers. Do you see yourself as brave for tackling this, or do you feel brave for putting this on film and putting it out to the world?
I mean, I don't know if I would think I was brave. I'm proud to do it. I think it was important for me to do, and I didn't feel like I really had any other option, because it was hard for me to do, but of course I'm going to do it, and there was like a moment where the story did turn very personal and kind of dark, and I was like, well, I'm not going to film anything else because I don't need people to see that. But then in the same breath, I was like, well, this is why I need to keep filming. I didn't think like, oh, I'm so brave, I'm gonna keep going. but I just felt like if I'm struggling with this, other people are probably struggling with this. And I've always been like a very open person. It doesn't take a lot of prying for me to share everything. And so it was, I just felt like it was the thing I had to do. So I was like proud to do it.
Well, that's a really awesome perspective to come at it from. I mean, even in the documentary, obviously I'm sure with production and how long it took, there's a lot of challenges to overcome in the making of it. But I mean, there's challenges even in the film. Is it the NAMM show when it wouldn't work and you didn't know what to do about that? Like, I don't know. I feel like all that kind of contributes to, how are you going to move forward with this project? So yeah, I mean, tell me more about your state of mind as this project was going on. Was there ever a point where you thought this is just never going to get done?
Yes. I mean, I know it's like finished or whatever, right. But like I still feel like it's never going to get out there. But the whole time, with like the Resynator specifically, you turn it on, you just don't know what's going to happen always, because it's analog mostly, and it's like from so long ago, and for a long time, I did just have my dad's prototype, which was the one we resurrected first, and like since then we've built a few more. But that original one, man, has a mind of its own, and like sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And at the NAMM show, it was not tracking, and there's like a little montage afterwards that's less than a minute, and then it's working again. That took over a year, actually, really? To get it working. And I took it to so many other people that I wasn't even filming because I was just so over it. And so, that was just, and I was just so bummed because I was like, what if we can't figure this out? And what does that mean and stuff? And again, like my mom really was so encouraging, and I think that my friends were too, and everybody was just, everyone knew that it was going to be okay, except for me. And then, so it's just been, there's been so many different challenges, on and off screen. But the Resynator for sure, you just never know.
What an interesting thing to have to work with on a film that you want to get done, but now you have this unpredictable component,
That's right.
It's interesting because you wrapped the film up in a very satisfying way. I think for audiences, it's such a cohesive narrative. We go on this journey with you, and we get to the end, and I think that there's a lot of satisfaction that audiences have with how the film ends. But I guess I was wondering at the end, have you found closure on this topic of what you were looking for with your dad?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I hadn't really thought about that much, but in a way, yes, absolutely. There was a time in last September, I think, 2023, where I had just finished watching the cut of the film. It was like in fine cut stage, but it was the first time that the film felt complete. And I think because of that, I felt like I could maybe exhale a little bit, like I felt like we were nearing the end. And it was this weird moment where I just completely broke down. And I think that it was partly because I was so exhausted and I finally gave myself a second to like breathe. But I also felt like watching it back, and it felt like a cohesive story. Like it kind of felt like I was watching somebody else's story, and I could connect to it in a way. And so I think just realizing everything that I had done, and I did, like in Colombia, I did have that spark. I did feel that connection for the first time to my dad in a new way. And being so sad at myself when I was at his crash site, I went with my cousin and went to the place where my dad crashed, and I went to a cemetery. I'd just never been to those places before because I never cared to dive deeper, you know? And so being at the crash site, I say on camera, you know, I just like, I know that my dad did, it still doesn't feel real to me that my dad did this, and I felt so sad for Allie in that car because I feel totally different now. And so having perspective and time and then watching the film, I do feel like I got a lot of closure that I didn't know I needed either. And I also feel like my mom probably got a lot of closure because there were things that she had kept, not like kept from me, but just never decided to share these things because I had never asked. But as an adult, like asking her, I'm ready, you know, she knew I was ready for the whole truth. I think that was a bit of closure for her too.
I've heard that filmmaking can be a form of therapy. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's funny you say that because I was like, I have a therapist, and I was like, here's my film. Like, I'll save you the trouble. You can just watch this.
That's actually really funny when you go into therapy and you want to give them your life story, and you actually can.
I just deliver the film now. It's great.
That's awesome. You meet someone towards the end of the film. His name's Peter Gabriel, and he says at one point, he says, maybe a better way to honor the Resynator is rather than recreate the past, to maybe look for how to, kind of advance it for the future. Is that something that you have like internalized or acting on? It's just kind of an epilogue to the film. I think that was a really interesting observation on his part, and I just wondered like where that went for you.
I mean, I hope you can see the shock on my face when he says that. I was like, yeah, that's so smart.
Yes, because I did the same face. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a great idea. Really, really great observation.
Yeah, like I had thought about putting it into software before. Like, of course, that thought had crossed my mind, but never the reason why. Like the idea that my dad was so ahead of his time. Like he wouldn't even really probably care about the things that he had done 40 years ago. Is looking ahead. Most like musicians I know too are the same way. Like they're always thinking about the future. They never want to look at their back catalog. And so that made so much sense to me. And yeah, so I've been trying for so long to find a software engineer who would do a build, but it's just so expensive, and so just to find the right person and who has the time and the interest and stuff. And I finally found him, and actually today is Friday, I think.
Yes.
It's like the NAMM show for like synthesizers and modular synths and stuff in Berlin. It's called Super Booth, and it's happening right now. And he's there with an original Resynator. We gave him one. And he's been working on a plugin, and so that's what he's at Super Booth promoting, this plugin. So it's not finished. It will be hopefully this summer, but it's happening.
That's really cool. and you're here in Seattle with us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I got work to do here too, so
of course.
we'll divide and conquer.
Yeah, there you go. If you want to fundraise for that, you can always go to Kickstarter.
That's right. You can just send me money directly. It's fine.
There is that too. Being here in Seattle, so I know that there's a screening of the film today. Is the next one tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow at 3.
Okay, so Seattle audiences are about to experience this film. How do you feel about that? And what do you think, what would you like Seattle audiences to take away from this movie?
Well, one of the reasons why I submitted to the Seattle International Film Festival was because it's such a music town. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there are certain pockets in America specifically that would be more open to this kind of journey, and Portland, Seattle, like those are the places that I think of. And so I'm hoping that people will like it here. Austin is obviously one, which is why South by was so great to get into. So yeah, I feel like there's an energy here that, you know, people will respond well to this film. I hope that they do.
I'm hoping so too. I think it's a good one to experience. It's a great journey to go on with you, and I really appreciate that you documented that so that the world can experience that with you.
Thank you so much.
So thank you for this interview. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for asking the good questions.
Yep.